Welcome back to Long Shots here at VSiN and VSiN.com, the sports betting network. Brady Cannon and Wes Reynolds with you. We'll bring in our colleague Matt Humans' plays as we get to the match play portion of the program, going over our plays for this week's event. And, of course, that is the Memorial, the second week in a row. We are at Muirfield Village, and we'll start with Mr. Humans' plays, Wes. He's going back to the well. The guy burned him, me and him both last week, Justin Thomas. Last week he was at about 13-1, down to 12-1 is where Matt got him this week. Also going with Brooks Koepka, kind of his weekly dose of Xander Schauffele, looking at Abraham Answer, and then also Jason Day, who's been playing some pretty darn good golf, playing a lot of golf since the restart, and really kind of steadily improving. What do you think about going back to the well with Justin Thomas, Wes? We talked about his mindset after kind of blowing it last week down the stretch. Can Thomas bounce back, and is that a play that you'd agree with?
It's not a play that I made, but I can't necessarily take a major stand or make a major argument against it because statistically, he's arguably the best fit and the best player in the field. When you look at the stats, he's ranked in second in strokes gained approach behind the man that nipped him in the playoff last week, Colin Morikawa. He's second in strokes gained tee to green. He's top 15 in greens and regulation. And I think he's 8th in the field, 11th overall in scrambling. I mean, you looked at last week, Justin Thomas, I think he rated like 38th in the field in putting and still had a 3-shot lead with 3 holes to play. So it's like maybe if he could just make 1 or 2 more putts that he can get there. Koepka is someone I considered. I left off. I did play him last week. Interesting thing about Koepka, if he could just avoid the bad start, he was 7 over on his front nines on his first 9 holes in both rounds combined on last Thursday and Friday, and was 8 under on his back nines. So he's just got to avoid that. And if he can, and look, I've been feeling that he was coming into form, and we were talking in the last segment about PGA, and I know David Bierman mentioned it earlier. That might be a guy, if I could get him in the low 20s, that I would be looking to back. And then I believe we do have Matt and I do have a couple common futures plays, so I will leave that to when it's my turn to go.
Well, let me ask you about his matchup play, his head-to-head matchup. Again, these are for full tournament matchups. He's got Jon Rahm at minus 110 over Dustin Johnson. We know DJ's not one of Matt's favorites. He likes to fade DJ. But do you expect a good week out of Jon Rahm, who really, since the restart, has been a little bit of a struggle?
I do actually expect a good week out of Jon Rahm, and I also played that matchup. And as you'll see momentarily, I made another play on him this week. Rahm is kind of the guy at the top of the market that's been getting ignored a little bit because, look, we know Bryson's going to get action. We know Rory's going to get action. We know Justin Thomas is going to get bets. We know Morikawa is going to get bets. We know that DJ, who won 2 weeks ago, he's going to get support. Cantlay is going to get support because he was the defending champion here at Muirfield Village last year. Fortunately, I was on him last year to cash a ticket. Hopefully we can do 2 years in a row at the Memorial. But Rahm is kind of going to be a little bit of the forgotten man. And one thing about Jon Rahm, he shot 64 on Sunday. He kind of has been very pedestrian and not very good since the restart. But and he only finished 27th, but he shot 8 under 64, which matched the low round of the tournament last weekend at the Memorial, and I think he gained like 6.2 something. I forget the exact number, but it was around 6.2 strokes gained tee to green and over 4 shots gained on approach. Usually Rahm in his ball striking gains more strokes off the tee. He's one of the best drivers of the golf ball when you combine not only distance but accuracy. He usually gains more off the tee than he does his second shots, but if he's hitting his second shots like that, he shot 64, not even really putting that great on Sunday. And his putting is above average for such an elite player. So, yeah, I'm very fond of Jon Rahm this week.
All right, well, let's get to your plays. You mentioned you had a couple of different plays on Jon Rahm. Did you play him on the outright futures board as well?
I did at 22-1. I went ahead and took a shot with Jon Rahm, and we were joking. Actually, they joked after the segment with Mitch and Paul on Follow the Money on Tuesday morning, because they were ripping John Rahm. And then I said, when they asked me who I liked, I said, I'm going to go with a little bit of a quote-unquote contrarian favorite. And Mitch goes, I'd have bet $1,000 he was going to say John Rahm, and sure enough, I did. So John Rahm at 22-1, I thought was a fair price. And it is a little bit of a boomer bust because he has not exactly gotten off the mat very quickly so far. So John Rahm at 22-1. I played Victor Hovland. I don't love it at 25-1 because he's the same price as he was in a weaker field last week. But he's led the field in strokes gained tee to green 3 consecutive events. That tells me that you're going to get a guy that's ready to win very soon. I almost get that feeling like I did with Bryson DeChambeau at Detroit, where it's like eventually he's just going to win because he's playing so darn well. And, you know, leading the field in strokes gained tee to green. He was leading the field last week in strokes gained off the tee by about 0.4 strokes around over the next closest player, and also with 6 in the field for strokes gained approach. Progressively better form. He's losing less strokes on the green. He lost 1.4 strokes on the greens last week at Memorial. But before that, when you combine the Rocket Mortgage and the Travelers, he had lost 6.8 strokes combined. So at least the putting looks to be getting a little better. And then I'll touch on a couple plays that Matt and I match on, and that was Abraham Answer and Jason Day. You'll recall less than a month ago, Brady, Abraham Answer shot 65 in the final round, 21 under par, and he loses because Webb Simpson gets out with the putter and birdies 5 of the last 7 holes to take the victory from him. And then after that heartbreaking...
Real quick. You and I talked about that. Was he going to be able to bounce back and get up off the mat, right? And he did pretty well in the following week, and then he took the next week off. I think that could be the perfect recipe for Answer. I'm on him as well. All the stats are there, and you can go into your explanation. But I think the time might be right for what you and I had discussed before for him to get back up off the mat.
Yeah, I'm with you. He's kind of a little bit out of sight, out of mind this week. Look, top 10 in approach and in tee to green. Pretty good scrambler. He rates 8th on the PGA Tour. He's first-round leader here 2 years ago. I think getting that chance to recharge his batteries is probably the best thing for him. He's just outside the top 20 in the official world golf rankings. And look, last 2 Memorials, we've had high-class breakthrough winners. It was Bryson DeChambeau 2 years ago, Patrick Cantlay last year, Morikawa last week at the Workday. So Answer certainly fits that pattern. And then Jason Day, because I think Matt played him as well. Home game for him because he lives in nearby Westerville, Ohio, which is a northeast suburb of Columbus. Spotty record in this event, but did finish very quietly, a top 7 finish last week at the Workday. He gained strokes in all 5 areas last week. Also has a win on a Nicklaus design course at Glen Abbey for the Canadian Open a few years ago. Usually plays very solid at Augusta. So Jason Day is a guy I think could really surprise this week.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Jason Day, and it's nice to see his game rounding into form. And I thought maybe a second straight week, when he's close to home and he just gets that typical 1 week at Memorial, he's never done that well. Maybe 2 weeks in a row is a good recipe for this guy. We'll see how he goes. Looking at my plays, I'm actually on the opposite side with you on a head-to-head matchup, Wes. I took Shane Lowry plus 105 over Corey Connors. You were on Connors minus the 125 over Lowry. I liked how Lowry played last week. He's also one of my futures plays at 145-1. He faltered a little bit on the weekend, but I think this is a guy that give him a second go-around. He showed a lot of signs of playing really well. Good scrambler, does a lot well that I think you need at this course to win. Corey Connors, for me, great ball striker, but the short game is his weakness. What was your mindset there on that matchup?
Yeah, it was kind of do you choose the chicken or the egg here? And I chose the chicken in terms of the ball striking with Corey Connors, where he's one of the best on the tour with the iron, but he's probably one of the more worst players with the flat stick. So, Lowry certainly...
If you combine the two guys, they'd be the perfect golfer.
Yeah, exactly. So Lowry certainly is a capable player, but I just went with the ball striking with Corey Connors. I almost considered him as a future at 150-1, but I went with another guy in that price range with Danny Willett.
All right, well, let's talk about one futures play that I added this morning. My last futures play that I added was Hideki Matsuyama, and I think it's very interesting that David Bierman brought him up as a player he was going to fade this week, because Hideki had the great rounds on Thursday and Friday and then really just left it all for naught on the weekend, couldn't find the putting stroke. And that's what really led me to back him this week. You know it as well as anybody, Wes. Hideki putts great at Augusta, and that's the type of greens we're going to get this week. If Hideki would have had the putter working last week, he might have won the darn thing. He probably would have finished top 10. I think Hideki is in a perfect spot to back him. Maybe we're getting even a little bit better price because he was poor with the short game last week. I think he's one of those guys that we talk about that is better on a faster surface.
Yeah, and you look the ball striking statistics every single week. He's one of the best in the world. He was, I think, 6th last week in the field in terms of strokes gained tee to green, and was top 10 in strokes gained approach. So, yeah, that's always going to be the sticking point with Matsuyama is can he putt? And I was kind of going back and forth, and I left him off, and I just am figuring, this is the week I'm going to leave him off, and this is the week he's going to show up. So I definitely don't disagree with that play.
Well, Sergio Garcia is a play that you have at 80-1, which is a great number. I've seen him come down lower than that. And certainly Sergio, one of the best ball strikers in the world, and has a win at Augusta as well. So I'll root for you on that play. I know humans will not be, but I like the thought of Sergio Garcia here at the Memorial as well. Next week is the 3M Open in Minnesota. Jeff Feinberg, professional bettor, professional golf handicapper, will join us to break it down. Thank you for joining us on Long Shots. Have a great week at the Memorial here on VSiN and VSiN.com, the Sports Betting Network.